The Ice Age video game collection is the ultimate variety pack. We've got great games, awful games, fantastic 3D adventures, less fantastic 2D platformers. There's even a Kinect game in the mix, or a standalone Scrat game from just a few years ago. The only certainty when you slide in an Ice Age video game is that you don't know what you're gonna get. So to put an end to that unknown, I spent way too long beating every single one. For some added nostalgia, I've decided to let a hexbug choose our order of approach. And first up, we have got the main console version of Ice Age 2, The Meltdown.
Son, you know, once you start, there's no going back.
I know.
We open with Sid telling the gang we've got to go to the water park so he can impress women.
I don't want to die sad and lonely like you.
Oh. That sounds great and all, but forget the main characters because we switched to Scrat for the first piece of gameplay. And already, it's apparent that this game is not some cheap piece of junk. The game world feels alive and detailed with unique animals hanging about, and it captures the distinct Ice Age aesthetic. Scrat's animations and sounds are also perfect. I better get this out there early. I love Scrat. The guy's awesome, and I'm invested in his Sisyphean plight to secure the acorn. So with the gameplay's focus on Scrat, swimming around this charming, colorful world with shockingly good water graphics for 2006, from the opening moments, I was sold. I approached a bubbling hole in the ground and was prompted to press Y. Upon doing so, Scrat buried his head in the hole, leading to this moment. After recovering from that frankly humiliating episode, Diego tells Scrat that he wants to be left alone so he can go beat off.
I'm going into this cave for some peace and quiet. There's nuts in those caves, but don't be mistaken.
Despite the threat, we enter the cave to get those nuts, leading to a game of red light, green light with Diego playing dead whenever he hears a rustle prompting him to turn around. After successfully collecting all of the nuts, Scrat gives us a knowing wink and does a little dance, and just how could you not love him? What a f***ing legend. Who wins, Scrat or a polar bear? Up until this point, the game has really just been teaching us the basic controls, and now we're tasked with scaling Penguin Mountain as a final test. We jump and climb our way up, making sure all of the game's key mechanics are cemented in our brain, finding Fast Tony, the armadillo, waiting at the top.
Aha! Now you look like the gambling type.
This game's charm is unmatched. Tony challenges us to bet all of our winter rations on a bout of penguin bowling as we hurl bowling balls at live penguins. At first, I didn't fully grasp the complex mechanics of penguin bowling, but once I'd figured out the relationship between where you aim and how you release the ball, I quickly became quite the pro bowler, blasting past the target score. Remember how these guys were going down to the water park so Sid could impress women? Well, now we finally cut back to them flying down a slide as the sloth. I feel like just about every great 2000s animated movie tie-in game has a gameplay section like this, and for good reason, because it's usually fun. When Sid gets air, we press button combinations to perform tricks, which is perhaps the most impressive thing Sid has ever or will ever do. Unfortunately, there weren't any women present to witness his efforts, but he gets approval from the fellas, which has got to count for something. But this is immediately overshadowed by the discovery that the ice is melting and their extinction is imminent. Anyhow, that's enough of these guys because the time just ticked back to Scrat o'clock.
Hooray!
After doing some more platforming, exploring the environment, collecting more nuts, sliding down cave systems, flying down zip lines, and throwing rocks at monkeys for reasons I don't quite remember, but I'm sure had something to do with Scrat wrapping his mitts around more nuts, we stumble upon this guy.
So hungry.
There's a rhino and an apple tree nearby, so we aggravate the rhino to make it charge, stand in front of the apple tree, and jump out of the way at the last second, dropping an apple.
More. I need more.
You motherfucker.
You motherfucker.
Once we've satisfied his hunger by repeating the process to get some more apples, we use his powerful farts to blast Scrat into cutouts on the cliff to collect more nuts. And it's a fun enough game of trial and error, nailing the shot to send the squirrel where he's meant to be. By now you might be getting the sense that this is basically just a Scrat game with the occasional appearance from the other characters to appease whatever contractual obligation the game devs had to fulfill, and I think that's probably a pretty fair assessment, especially when you consider the gameplay Scrat is given compared to the others. Take this for example, a section where we jump across platforms of floating ice while avoiding a sea monster lurking below. As we collect more acorns, the challenge gets greater, the ice gets more slippery, and the sea monster becomes much more attuned to Scrat's location. Eventually, Scrat is swallowed by the sea beast, and now we do some platforming and exploration from inside its digestive system. We crawl around its internal organs, zipline across its stringy innards, and fend off whatever these bacterial glob organism things are supposed to be. After poking the eyes out of its nightmarish sphincter that seems to have a mind of its own, Scrat crawls to freedom. So there's one chunk of Scrat gameplay. What's the Diego section placed directly alongside it? For 90 seconds, we play whack-a-mole, hitting Crash and Eddie while avoiding the skunks.
That's it?
So yeah, it's kind of the inverse of the movies, where instead of focusing on the main characters with the occasional cut to Scrat to break things up, here Scrat is the clear focus with the occasional cut to these guys to break up the nut collecting. I'm not complaining, I wouldn't have it any other way, and the main gameplay is pretty fantastic. The platforming itself is satisfying and enjoyable, but on top of this, there's always a unique mechanic, like at one stage we have to knock a bird out to take control of it to obtain nuts that were otherwise out of reach. Or we do a memory game with whatever these things are called, with the reward being they now let us jump on top to use them as moving platforms to cross the mud. After collecting chilies to help a sloth chef who is cooking a cauldron of just straight lava, Scrat ends up in what seems to be hell. Liquid fire combined with spiders and Sid being suspended from a rope above it all. Here in hell, Scrat must endure unimaginable pain as he sets his tail on fire, having to perform some efficient platforming to reach spider webs before the fire goes out to clear a path ahead. At this point, the game's cutscenes switch from being rendered animations to these cheap sorta illustrated stills. From my understanding, it's because they ran out of time in development, but the gameplay maintains the same quality, so I seriously couldn't give a f.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay.
The final set piece is this beautiful icy labyrinth. We swim between chambers, and at first I forgot that I could press A to swim faster, so Scrat drowned, giving us what is an unreasonably brutal drowning death animation. I can feel my lungs watching the poor fella meet his end. In this labyrinth, there's a lot to see as we discover the skeletons of ancient prehistoric animals and free a mammoth trapped in ice who instantly runs into a wall and dies the moment he's set free.
It was a true tragedy.
Scrat couldn't care less though, he's got his nut, that's what we're here for. After disguising as an egg to sneak past this bird, the game ends abruptly with a cutscene telling us whatever story was supposed to be told here was wrapped up nicely and the credits roll. Despite the final few cutscenes being made in one afternoon the day before the game was released, overall the Ice Age 2 main console game is a wonderfully fun, charming, well-designed time, and it's worth a play for any fans of the franchise or just movie tie-in games in general.
Tight, yeah!
Now we return to the Hexbug to find out what's next, and it is Ice Age 4 Continental Drift Arctic Games. This game was released across a number of consoles, including the Xbox Kinect, so of course I had to take this rare opportunity to wipe the dust off the poor old forgotten machine. The gang is wandering about when they stumble upon an unexplained giant acorn full of fruit. Pirate animals show up, so to decide who gets to take home the fruit, the two gangs agree to compete compete in a competition of Arctic games, creating the necessary excuse to drum up a collection of mini-games that cater to the Kinect. First up, we've got Slip Slide, where we slide down an icy path, leaning left and right to control Ellie's direction while leaning forward to speed up. You know I tend to enjoy these slidey pipe levels in other games. The combination of speed and momentum while trying to maintain precision is something I always find satisfying. Not here, though. I don't know if the Kinect tracking just isn't precise enough or if it's a problem with the design of the gameplay itself, but I did not feel like I was in control of Ellie to an adequate level. Despite my terrible performance, I somehow performed better than the Pirates, earning the point for round 1. Round 2 is a ski jump where Sid has been handed the reins to represent the team. First, we need momentum, pumping the ski poles to gain speed before jumping to launch Sid into the skies. It's now that we try to match various poses to perform tricks while in the air. The cutouts of the poses we're trying to match are in the shape of Sid's body, and unfortunately, I'm not shaped like an animated sloth. Seriously, is this meant to be a joke? Like, I'm not shaped like that. No one is. How the f am I supposed to feel some of these poses?
What's the point?
Time for Shell Slide, which is a form of curling. We aim by leaning left or right and then throw the turtle, trying to land as close as possible to the center of the target. But the game doesn't lock in your aim, and it's not particularly good at tracking when you throw. So quite often, it will interpret the throwing motion as leaning and change where you're aiming. Add Sid constantly making moaning sounds.
Aim first, throw second, Sid.
And the resulting gameplay is so infuriating that I was often driven over the edge and just said F it, trying to throw the turtle without caring where I was aiming or what was going on. This stellar tactic seemed to do the trick, as I was able to successfully land my turtles closer to the target, earning more points than the Pirates and winning the round for the team.
A great success!
Prehistoric Plumber is the next round, where we play as Scrat plugging leaks on an iceberg. It is effectively just the leak plugging mode from Kinect Adventures, but hey, this game mode gets bonus points because it's Scrat. Then we do some downhill skiing as Granny. This plays in a very similar fashion to the first round, sliding around as Ellie, except the space here is wide enough for the lack of precision to not be such a huge problem. Don't get me wrong, I was still constantly banging into obstacles and missing targets, and by this point I was fed up with the experience of Ice Age 4 on the Kinect as a whole, but this game mode passed with relatively low levels of frustration. The point was awarded to the Pirates as I fell 4 seconds behind the target time, and we moved on to the next round. Coconut Slingshot is a game mode where we shoot targets with a coconut slingshot. I'm not too sure how you perform poorly in this one because you can see exactly where the coconut will go before you release it. This dominant display earned a score more than double the Pirates' efforts, leveling the total tally once again at 3-all.
Oh my god, the suspense is killing me.
There's an obstacle course with Diego where we run in place to make him run, jump to make him jump, and hold our hands up to make him stop. You may be wondering how the Pirates completed the course in 2 minutes while it took me over 14 minutes. And, well, it was absolutely my fault, and I'm willing to take the full blame here. At the start of the obstacle course, there's this drop-off, and I kept jumping into the water and dying with no clue what the game wanted me to do. After admittedly way too many attempts, I discovered we're supposed to stop and wait for the platform to move. I guess this deep into the Ice Age Kinect game, you can only expect me to have so many brain cells still firing.
I feel like I let my teammates down tonight.
Next is Bob Smashing, which is the same as the first game mode, except this time we're supposed to hit the blocks of ice instead of dodge them. Feels like a bit of a cop-out, like we're just repeating the exact same gameplay with one small tweak. If the game was chock-a-block with content, this might not be an issue, but it's not chock-a-block with content. It's time for some more Scrat action with Scrat Cannon. We pump the mammoth to launch our boy and then control him through the air, trying to make it as far as possible possible by landing on bounce pads. Despite my foul mood at this stage of the Arctic games, I still enjoyed this enough for what it is. I was definitely more willing to give it a go because it's Scrat, and something about that little fella generally makes things more likable, and it helps that there aren't any glaring gameplay issues making it overly tedious to play. To end this grand competition with a bang, we jump to make Diego break ice so he can then run to the next bit of ice where we jump some more to break it. I know I'm coming up with excuses, but it was leg day at the gym that morning, and considering the entire game mode is just jumping to make Diego break ice and we'd already lost the overall competition, I made the executive decision to not put in maximum effort, prioritizing my legs rest. Feel free to call me pathetic for being defeated by the single player mode in the Ice Age Kinect game while alone in my 20s. I can't really deny it, that's just the reality of my situation.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
One can only hope the Hexbug will choose a more positive path to go down next. And it's the main console version of Ice Age 3: Dawn of the Dinosaurs. The setup for the tutorial section of the game is that Ellie is pregnant and expected to give birth soon. So Manny has asked Sid to collect crystals to give to her as a gift because he can't be bothered doing it himself. It's a promising tutorial as we learn all of the core platforming controls and the combat mechanics. The game looks nice, controls well, and the voice acting is solid, as despite going through hell and back to collect a crystal for Manny's wife on his behalf, his cynical, mood-killing energy is on full display.
You guys know what goes best with crystals?
Parmesan?
Nope. More crystals.
Am I a joke to you?
Manny builds a playground in preparation for his child's arrival, and after helping him out by covering the sharp edges in mud, Carl and Frank show up. I've just realized that they have the same names as the pair of bland old dogs in Succession, so I choose to believe that the Succession characters are directly inspired by the Ice Age rhinos. You heard it here first. We throw mud balls to make them charge at us, and then once they knock themselves out by running into a wall or rock, we can jump on their back and take control. It's pretty fun, and I remember playing games as a kid. It was always exciting when you got to take control of a larger beast, like in Crash Mind Over Mutant, so I'm sure I would have loved this too. We play as Diego chasing a gazelle, power sliding around corners and avoiding obstacles to make up ground on the prey. This is the only time we play as Diego in the entire game, and while it's only 2 minutes assuming you get it on the first try, it's a memorable piece of gameplay, and I'm glad they bothered to craft a unique Diego level instead of shafting him completely. Sid finds some dinosaur eggs that he decides to kidnap and call his own, and when one falls off a cliff, he dives after it. I'm not too sure how the logic of this pans out, but it results in us rolling around atop a snowball with the egg presumably at the center of the ball. We roll about, gaining and losing momentum, trying to maintain control while descending platforms, and we occasionally plow through a bunch of dodos, killing them swiftly. It would be cruel to leave one with all of its family gone, so it's probably best I finish the job. Later on, we're attacked by some dodos rolling around on boulders. Perhaps it's an act of vengeance, but it just gives Sid the chance to bump up his kill count as we knock them off the edge. Or in an even more insulting, spiteful move, use our agility to dupe them into flying off the cliff's edge without ever making contact.
Did you really think you could defeat me, wretched fool?
This whole section is a banging bit of gameplay, but we've got to move on because Sid's eggs have hatched into little dinosaurs, and now the big mother has come looking for them. I know I have a knack for constantly bringing up my boy Crash Bandicoot. But these running levels appear throughout Ice Age 3, and every time it feels like slipping back into one of those classic Crash levels of the same format. And now it's time to switch to Ice Age's Crash equivalent, Scrat. He stares in awe at the woman of his dreams. And something about Scrat's character model in this game is perfect for me. He feels particularly Scratty.
I love the little son of a...
Spread throughout the game are these 2.5D platforming levels as we play as both Scrat and the woman Scrat, which is called Scrat. or Scrat. I don't know how to pronounce it, but these 2.5D levels are a fantastic addition to the game as they flow surprisingly well. And once you get comfortable with the mechanics, they feel like a fast-paced Rayman type of game. Scrat's got just enough weight to him, and the variety of platforming mechanics leads to satisfying timing-based gameplay with an emphasis on flow. These levels follow the two squirrels competing over the same acorn, blind to the ferocious sexual energy building between them. When the acorn is finally flung over a cliff and Scrat truly realizes his attraction to her, a bubble lifts the nut, resulting in my favorite cutscene moment in the game. I just love this Scrat character model so f***ing much. I can't express how much life I see in these eyes. Eventually, the two Scrats do realize they're made for each other as they abandon the nut, walking off to presumably f***. From this point on, for the majority of the game, we play as this guy, Buck. At first, I wasn't too excited by this idea because out of everyone in the Ice Age universe, honestly, who cares about Buck? But by the end of the game, I was convinced it was the right decision because the Buck gameplay is awesome. He's got a complex set of mechanics and moves, being able to double jump, wall run, wall bounce up parallel surfaces, and use a whip to swing across gaps. He can also climb on branches like this, resulting in some slightly dizzying gameplay that I won't stay on for too long because I don't want you to get a headache. There's also parts where we slide down rails, leaning, jumping, and switching paths to avoid obstacles. You probably already know who this gameplay reminds me of. When we're not platforming, we're taking part in combat, and his combat is also much more fleshed out than expected. He's got a variety of plant-based weapons to attack with. A general pea shooter, a heavy mushroom shooter, which is a lot of fun to one-shot dinosaurs with, and he can throw lychees, which act as grenades. Or if you opt to go with melee combat, he can use his vine whip, which is the typical spam X and Y combat often found in these sorts of games, but it works, and the animations are strong. On top of the platforming and combat, we've got a variety of boss battles. My favorite probably being a large carnivorous plant where we have to destroy each of its attacking arms before peeling back its layers to get to its core. In retrospect, I have a suspicion that this whole game was really just a Buck video game with some strong Scrat side content spread throughout, and then they tagged on some extra gameplay featuring the other characters to satisfy the audience who would get pissed off if the entire thing was Buck with Scrat sprinkles. It wouldn't be a good kids game with dinosaurs if we never got to ride them, and the makers of this game knew that, so we get multiple sections of flying combat commandeering a pteranodon. While Dawn of the Dinosaurs might not be the best Ice Age movie, its premise definitely sets itself up to be an exciting game considering all of the possibilities with dinosaurs, and I'm glad this game was made with the effort required and intent to take full advantage of this.
And I'm getting quite near the end now of this analysis.
After some more of this Sid running towards the camera from a big dinosaur gameplay, we get to the final boss battle. It's a duel between Rudy and Big Mama. What we have to do is pull off some platforming as Buck to get to the next vantage point before shooting these plants while avoiding Rudy's big chomping gob. Once the plants are cleared, rocks drop in front of Rudy, and now we do some more platforming to get to the next one. After doing this a number of times, eventually the final rocks drop in front of Rudy, and to be honest, I don't understand how this has helped the situation at all. But Big Mama decides it's time to end the game, ramming Rudy off the edge, leading us to the credits.
But I'm not done yet.
There's also an extensive library of multiplayer games you can play, which I managed to convince my sister to spend an hour or so going through. To be honest, the majority of these are kinda lame and don't have much to offer beyond a couple minutes figuring out what they are, but this is made up for by the snowball rolling 1v1 modes, which are a lot of fun. Trying to bump your opponent off without overcommitting and flying off the edge, or trying to bait your opponent into overcommitting leads to some real fun moments. In the extras, there's a character viewer, which for most people would be completely useless and not worth touching. But for someone who loves this particular Scrat character model so much, I had a solid few minutes just staring at him. Next, the Hexbug has chosen that we will explore the handheld games. The first Ice Age movie only had one game released for it. This is GBA exclusive. The entire game is just 10 short levels. We play as Manny with the dreaded Ice Age baby on his back, slowly platforming through the level and dealing with enemies, collecting as many acorns as we can be bothered to collect. At the end of the level, we'll reach a boss battle, and usually in this sort of game, the boss battles are the highlights, but on this occasion, they're often so boring that they barely register as boss battles. Like, just watch this. In case you didn't realize, what you are watching right now is a boss battle. And there it goes. That was a boss battle, I guess.
If it is to be said, so it is.
There's a couple levels where we play as Sid. The main difference is his levels are auto-scrolling, and if you fall behind, you have to restart. The janky controls and inconsistent hitboxes, combined with the noise Sid makes every time he takes damage, leads to what I'd describe as not fun. Fortunately, you can beat the whole game in under an hour. Then we've got the GBA version of Ice Age 2 The Meltdown. The game consists of 3 main game modes. The most prominent mode is these drop-down puzzle levels. We're given a space to navigate and 3 playable characters, Manny, Diego, and Sid. They each have their own abilities and setbacks, such as Sid being able to melt ice with his hands, Manny being able to fling the other characters around or push heavy objects, and Diego can slash these vines. In each level, we switch between the 3 characters to progress through the environment and get all members of the trio to the cave to end the level. At one stage, I got Manny stuck bouncing back and forth on the ice because he can't control his heft on the slippery surface. I couldn't do anything to break the cycle, and the game doesn't let you switch characters while he's sliding, so I just had to restart the level. The second game mode is the 6 boss battles spread throughout, all of which feature this gameplay of moving around on a floating piece of ice, shooting the large boss fish to do damage while avoiding the smaller ones. The problem is if you play the battle like it's intended to be played, it is absurdly difficult and you take 3 hits, die, and have to start again. So to beat it, you go to the edge of the map, don't move, and blindly shoot towards the center of the map, only adjusting to hit fish when they go directly for you. It isn't fun, but you keep doing this until you inevitably land enough hits and defeat the boss. The final game mode is the 2D Scrat levels, and of course, they are the highlight. They're incredibly fast, free-flowing, and so much more fun than any of the platforming featured in the first GBA game. So it's a bit of a shame that there are only 6 of these Scrat levels compared to the 30 standard puzzle levels.
How many are there?
6. Counted them myself.
There was also a version released for the DS, which is like if you took the same core gameplay but tweaked a couple of things to make it terrible. There's a countdown timer filling up that will fail you if it reaches the top, which you need to collect acorns to prevent, turning the laid-back puzzle gameplay into an unnecessarily stressful, annoying, tedious event. Instead of being able to scan the environment when we're standing still, which is how it works in the GBA version, we've got this map, which isn't particularly helpful as it doesn't really communicate any of the level layout. These 2 differences alone are enough to turn the core game idea into a headache. Just don't go near the DS version, it sucks.
It's the biggest piece of dog.
The final handheld game we've got is Dawn of the Dinosaurs on the DS, which has a lot to live up to considering the quality of the main console version. It's a lot of the same ideas, but reworked for handheld, as you spend the majority of the game doing 2.5D platforming as Buck. It's by no means bad, but compared to the wonderful console version, I can't say I got too excited playing the downgraded for handheld equivalent. To break up the platforming, there's sections where we shoot stuff as Sid, and there's boss battles against Rudy. These battles are pretty good. They've all got their own little mechanics, like for this one, you gotta try and use the plants shooting at you to poke Rudy's eye out, and then he'll go and wait with his mouth gaping, just begging for you to slap something in it. Collecting acorns throughout the platforming unlocks bonus Scrat mini-games, which are of course continuing the trend of Scrat being the best part of any game he's involved in. Overall, it's not a bad game. Its biggest downfall is that I played the incredible console version first.
It is acceptable.
And finally, to cap it all off, we've just got to wait for the Hexbug. Bear with it. It's time for Scrat's Nutty Adventure. Unlike all of the other games, this one isn't directly tied to any movie. In 2019, for some reason, someone decided to make a standalone Scrat game. As you're well aware by now, I love this guy, so I've probably got a bias towards his Nutty Adventure, but let's just see how it is. The game opens with Scrat and his prized acorn as the floor of his nest falls out, landing him inside an ancient temple, activating something called the Challenge of the Scratazons, which is just a load of old bollocks, giving us an excuse to go out as Scrat to find the 4 legendary nuts. The game looks pretty nice. It's no technical marvel, but it's colorful, clean, and there is something I find satisfying about playing a game in the Ice Age universe on a current day console. We do some pretty simple platforming, jumping through the vibrant environment, climbing up surfaces with these pink gemstones on them, and wall bouncing with charming little Scrat sound effects to boot. There's insect enemies, and the combat isn't the most snappy or reliable. With these bugs, I just found spamming Scrat's downward slam attack to be the best option because it's guaranteed to connect with anything in the vicinity. The good news is this isn't a fighting game. You can choose to just run and jump past most threats that arise, so while the combat is mediocre at best, it didn't bother me too much. Hey look, there's mammoths. I wonder if they'll appear as anything more than details in the background of the environment. In case you're wondering, they don't. After giving himself a concussion trying to break concrete with his squirrel head, Scrat is laughed at by Frank and Carl. In the heat of the moment, he pulls a snowball out of his sphincter and pegs it at them, leading to our first boss battle. We use our evasive maneuvers to avoid the rhino's attacks while throwing snowballs to do damage whenever we get the chance. After a while, the rhino's health gets low enough to enter its second stage, where it winds up to charge at Scrat full speed ahead. We stand in front of the concrete gate and the rhino charges, knocking itself out and damaging the gate. We repeat this with the second rhino destroying the gate, and Scrat pulls out the most gangster strut of all time as he walks on through the rubble with Frank and Carl unconscious on either side. We solve more puzzles by collecting these mechanical nut-looking things and shoving them into their slots. It's by no means innovative, but Scrat feels nice to control, and because there isn't any dialogue and the game looks clean and colorful, it has this therapeutic, soothing energy to it. In a weird way, it reminds me of playing The Witness, if The Witness didn't really require any brain power. After a while, we find the first legendary nut, and Scrat hoists it into the air, leaning precariously over the edge of a cliff. One can only imagine what happens next.
Of course!
So for a few minutes, Scrat turns into Rico Rodriguez in the opening of Just Cause 3 as we plummet to the ground chasing the nut. He places it on its mantle and we're teleported to this magical purple nether. At multiple stages throughout that first hour of the game, I found myself wishing I had a double jump, so it was a delight to see the game designers read the script and awarded us with that exact ability. The platforming is now a lot more fun, with Scrat's dramatically improved maneuverability as we go through the second chunk of game through glacial ice and lakes. While the gameplay here doesn't change a hell of a lot, the difference in environment and introduction of the double jump makes it feel varied enough to not get too repetitive. Throughout the platforming, there's these ice slides that we can fly down. They're a fun addition to the environment. That is assuming that they work.
What the f?
The second boss battle is against these big boys. Cretaceous chases Scrat around until eventually overexhausting himself and flopping onto his side to reveal his conveniently exposed belly. We use this opportunity to do damage until he uses the very questionable physics of the ice block we're standing on to catapult us into Maelstrom's mouth, leading to some button spamming. As we're ejected from his gob, there's a brief but very noticeable pause in Maelstrom's animation. Look, this game is obviously low budget as and made by a small team, and it has some goofiness as a result, but I'm still charmed by it, having fun. And I may be wrong, but I get the sense it's a game made with a nostalgic love for that whole genre of 2000s movie tie-in games that's sadly been lost to time. This feeling is strong as we surf down a river chasing the next legendary nut. The controls are fun and loose, it looks like the Ice Age world, it feels like a piece of gameplay from that golden era. The music is way too intense for the moment. And I am a lover of Scrat, so yeah, I'm having a great time. Returning the second nut rewards us with the Scratapult ability. There's these rings around the environment that we can now use to slingshot. It's another fun new gameplay addition that refreshes the next hour of gameplay as we journey through the crystal caverns, solving more platforming puzzles with this added ability. Scrat gets his hands on the next nut. Thanks, Chris Wedge, for your phenomenal work as the sole voice actor in Scrat's Nutty adventure. The final ability we unlock is telekinesis. Sounds exciting, right? Well, not really. It just means we can now pull these cubes around. Yeah, the telekinesis only works on these boxes, so it's really just a glorified version of pushing crates around. To collect the final nut, we journey through the jungle, leading to the heart of an active volcano, and eventually the final boss battle against a pterosaur. Much like all of the other boss battles, I can't say it challenged me at all, but I am an adult and this is the Scrat video game. Still, I had a good time, dodging all of its attacks until it does this roar where you spam Y to cling onto the floor to avoid being blown backwards into the lava, and then after this roar, it knocks itself out, giving you a chance to do damage. At one stage, Scrat kind of broke, and when it was my window to attack the unconscious Pteranodon, my boy was stuck in this pose, floating around on one foot like he's ice skating. But singeing him with lava snapped him out of it, allowing us to do damage and finish off the boss. Placing the final nut on its mantle leads to Scrat being beamed up into a giant acorn UFO. Here, he is greeted by this thing, which I'm sure hasn't had any disgusting fan art made out of it. Scrat makes this face, and the credits roll.
Alrighty then. Smoking.
So after this grand study, what have I found? Should you play all of the Ice Age games? No, you shouldn't. Play the console versions of the second and third one. They're both genuinely great games. If you're bored, I guess you can throw in the DS version of Dawn of the Dinosaurs and the GBA version of the Meltdown. If you're a fan of Scrat, I'm sure you'll also be a fan of Scrat's Nutty Adventure, so add that one to the list. As for the remaining three, avoid them at all costs.
I'm done! You hear me?